All right, it's 8:04. I'll let our MC to start today.
Phoenix xin thông báo buổi hội thảo Suicidal Assessment đánh giá nguy cơ tự sát sắp sửa bắt đầu trong ít phút nữa. Mọi người hãy ổn định chỗ ngồi và tắt mic để tránh các tạp âm gây nhiễu ảnh hưởng tới người theo dõi nhé. Nếu mọi người nhìn thấy hình ảnh và nghe âm thanh rõ, hãy comment yes vào bot chat ngay bây giờ. Cảm ơn các bạn tham gia. Mình nhìn thấy rất là nhiều chữ yes đã được comment vào trong bot chat ngay bây giờ. Thì nếu như mà các khán giả của chúng ta đều đã sẵn sàng để bắt đầu chương trình, mời mọi người hãy cùng nhau điền vào bot chat tên và chuyên khoa của mình để chúng ta cùng làm quen với nhau nhé. Thì trong thời gian mà mọi người điền tên cũng như là chuyên khoa của mình, thì mình xin thông qua một số điểm lưu ý cho quý khán giả theo dõi hội thảo ngày hôm nay trên nền tảng Zoom. Trong suốt thời gian tham dự, đội ngũ kỹ thuật sẽ mute micro của các bạn để không gian chung không bị ảnh hưởng. Khi có các câu hỏi mong muốn được trao đổi trực tiếp cùng với diễn giả, hoặc là có những cái câu trả lời muốn được giao lưu cùng với diễn giả, các bạn vui lòng giơ tay hoặc điền vào khung chat của Zoom. Các hình ảnh chụp màn hình trong buổi hội thảo ngày hôm nay sẽ được sử dụng cho mục đích truyền thông lành mạnh, nhằm lan tỏa các giá trị mà Phoenix hướng tới cộng đồng sinh viên y và bác sĩ Việt Nam. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Welcome to our conference, Suicide Assessment from the Phoenix Medical Academy. I'm Thanh Trân and I will be the MCs for our event today. Our speaker today will help to share with us the standards of suicide risk assessment and the methods that help you to identify risk factors in patients, especially patients with mental health disorder. During the event, if you have any question, please type in the chat box. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce you to our host today. We have Dr. Nguyễn. She is the family medicine physician in the US and the founder of the Phoenix Medical Academy. Please welcome Dr. Nguyễn.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Thanh Trân, for your introduction. Welcome, everybody, to our monthly didactic meeting today. I'm very honored to have with us our guest speaker today is Hương Võ. She is a master. She has a master in psychology, and she will share with us today about suicide assessment and what are some of the important things that physicians and other healthcare providers and other healthcare workers should know about suicide assessment and what we can do to prevent the patient from committing suicide. I'm also very honored today to have with us Dr. Leon Nguyen. He's our co-host for today, and he is a family medicine resident right now, and he is the director for this program. He's planning this monthly didactic series for us, so I'm very happy to have him on our team. So please help me welcome Hương Võ and Dr. Leon Nguyen. Thank you. Now I will pass the mic to Dr. Leon to say a few words and how about introduce Hương Võ furthermore.
So hello everyone, my name is Leon Nguyen. I'm a family medicine resident right now in Washington State, United States. I'm honored to have Ms. Hương Võ here today. I invite her to talk to you guys about something called suicide assessment. I think it's a very important skill, given that suicide is something that we rarely talk about in training as well as in doing medicines. And as physicians, we don't really deal directly with suicide, but we kind of have a role in helping the behavioral health partner that work with us kind of involved in the screening process. And I think it's a very important topic to bring up and discuss with everybody. So without further ado, I will introduce Ms. Hương Vo. Unless she gives some words about herself and what she's doing right now, and then we can get started. Hương, all you.
Thank you, Dr. Leon and Dr. Krista. My name is Hương. I'm currently in my internship for PsyD program. I'm in my internship residency. I just started last month. I just started. In my clinical training, I mainly work with children and adolescents. I do have some experience working with adults in mental health. However, it's limited. So most of what I share, I try to involve as much as knowledge and information to when working with adults for you guys in this presentation. However, most of my experience gonna come from a perspective of child and adolescent clinician. So keep that in mind. Also, I during my discussion with Dr. Leon, we do mention about intervention. I do see some questions about intervention under Excel's file that I received from you. However, due to the limitation of time and so I think today we're gonna focus more on assessment instead of intervention, because intervention is a long story, it's a whole different process. And what we're gonna try to do now is just screening for that, screening so that we know who has higher risk and put them in a right level of care. Okay, let's get started.
Thank you, Ms. Hương. You can go ahead and share your screen for us.
1 second. All right, were you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Great. Here, there we go. So firstly, I would like to go talk a little bit about what we're gonna cover in today's presentation. Firstly, I want this to make it as a chance for us to explore our personal experience, how our biases, how it's influenced our view as a clinician, the way we see suicide patient in general, so that we understand our biases, our belief on this, so that we can have a better understanding by ourselves. Also, I'm gonna go over some facts. Most of the facts I provided here is based on the US. So some of them may not be generalized for Vietnamese population. However, it just gives you some idea. And of course, some definition. And most importantly is suicidal assessment, why we have to do it and how to do it effectively. And last but not least, documentation. I can emphasize enough how important documentation is when we work with mental health, work in mental health field, or especially with patients with mental health, with suicidal ideation. All right, let's jump right in. All right, so here's are some questions that I would like you to take a few minutes and answer. You can type in the chat box, or you can raise your hand to speak up and share your experience. Why do people kill themselves? What are the reasons for that? The second question is that, yes, I saw some hand that raised. Okay. Can someone help me with that? Somebody try to talk. Try to say something. Some people try to.
Joe, raise your hand if you want to. Do you have a question for us?
I'm sorry, I hear that if you want to answer the question, you can speak
Yes.
by
Yes,
raise
please.
your hand.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
for my personal experience, I tried to kill myself 2 years ago because of depression, and at that time I feel really disappointing with myself and feel hurtful. That hurtfulness, I cannot hold it, so I want to end the hurt in my self. So that I think the depression and anxiety is one of the reasons why people kill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joe, for your sharing, and thank you for bring that up. Yes, definitely, that's one of the reason for why people kill themselves. And beside that, I also see I also see Trúc Lâm post hopelessness and despair. Yes, hopelessness is one of the most common reason when people who kill themselves have that. Over stressful life, heavy work overload. Yes, definitely. So is it ever acceptable to suicide? Again, this is self-explore questions. There are no right and wrong answer for this. Just want to know your opinion on that. Is it ever acceptable to suicide? What do you guys think? How about situation when people who has a severe medical condition like cancer or heart disease, or like severe, or they don't have any treatment option? So what do you think about that? Yes, someone shared that there is a concept called a fate worse than death. Joe, please share what you think. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, it's never acceptable to suicidal, because if we suicidal, it will affect really negatively for others, like parents or people around, and for the society, they have the negative thinking about suicidal person. So I think that the one who has suicidal should receive the help from medical or other. So, and should then acceptable that, because it is a horrible thing to happen for themselves and their family and people around.
Thank you for sharing, Joe. I think those are very important thoughts to consider.
Yes, thank you, Joe, so much for your participation, for your sharing. And Dr. Lee also said that I think it's acceptable to think about suicide. And in fact, 10% of Americans have thought about suicide in their life, which means every 10 of us, every 10 of adults in the US have once in their life think about suicide. Every 10 of us, there are one people who think about suicide in their life. Maybe they not attempt, or they not even commit, but they did think about it. Anjan shared a very interesting way of interesting idea that I don't think is subject to think accept or not. Instead of think they are drowning alone, need to see no care. Yes, I absolutely agree with you on that. Sometimes working in mental health field, we need to stay in a neutral role, stay at a neutral role. We're not judging is it right or is it wrong. We just stay there, accept them as they are, and provide them the best care. Maybe after we provide them the best care that we can, they still decided to kill themselves, and that's their decision. What are warning signs of suicide? what are the warning signs, the sign that you often see in other people, when they think about that, when they have that plan. Yes, please, Joe.
Yes, I think one of the common signs is verbal. Mean they speak about that the intention to suicide, and second, they have a plan to do that. And the more intention they will make is more information and specific. And the third side is that they lost the motivation in life, and they lost the happy feeling and the willing to do even the basic activity for themselves and others.
Yeah,
and there's and the last, I think, is the writing. They will they want to have other to receive their stuff. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. That receive and what people, and they notice people what to do when they after they their death.
Yep. Yeah. That's okay, Joe. Please keep sharing. You're doing great. Besides, thank you, Joe, for all that all that warning sign. Also, some of other participants also mentioned something like hopelessness, crying, depression, less enjoy in life, low support, emotional dysregulation. Yes, there are signs that's really tell us that we need to take things seriously. Also, people, they may withdraw from their daily life activity. They may isolate themselves. They giving things away. Like thinking about rehome for their pet is one of the most significant sign. A lot of time pet is the thing that, pet is someone or something that keep that person alive, because that's the only reason. I have a pet that I need to take care about. I need to worry about my pet. So when they think about rehome their pet, they give things away. They give things that they love dearly. Someone loves books and they give their books away. That's something that we need to think about, even they don't talk about suicide. Substance use increasing the risk for suicide. Sometimes even though they don't say something, but if you see things that seem odd to you, seem different, seem weird, say it. Bring it up to discussion with them. We're gonna talk about it later. I think some have clarified symptoms, but just in case we care about them. They are always signs if you understand them enough. Yes, if you understand them enough, you're gonna see the difference in their life, in their daily function. However, if that's someone that you met for the first time, you need to ask to. So that's why today's presentation gonna give you some tool to do that effectively. And the last questions, what are your individual responsibility for suicide patient? What do you think is your responsibility? Screening and introduce appropriate level of care, yes. As a clinician, yes, that's very important. Thank you, Dr. Leon. Be kind, understanding, and non-judgmental. Be there for them, yes. Thank you, Trúc Lam, for your answer. That remind me one of the quote that I always keep in mind when I work in this field is that whenever you are, be there totally. Be there for your patient, for your client. Listen to them. All right, so those are questions that I would like you to take time and think about, so that, sometimes I will be loved. If you have experience with someone in your life who died by suicide in the past, may influence the way you work with patients too. So those are things that I would like you to take time and think about to see how, because as they're gonna influence the way you view your patient. Thanh Phương said that have them feel relieved by talking to them, listen to them. Yes, definitely. All right. So I do have a little game that I was about to show us. However, because of the time, I think that we should just move forward. So in the US, in 2020, almost 46,000 Americans died by suicide. Around 1.2 million suicide attempts. So every day there are 130 suicide a day. So those numbers, I just throwing those numbers out there for you so that you understand the seriousness of this topic, of this issue. You know, how many people out there are crying for help. And men die for nearly 4 times more than women. So definition. I would like to, there's some definition, some term that I would like to clarify before we talk about the main topic. Suicide is a death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with any intent to die or as a result of that behavior. So sometimes, a lot of time, I see a lot of people use the word commit suicide, and I sometimes do use it myself. However, it's not encouraged word that we should use, because in some belief, in some religious belief, I'm Catholic, so you know, when we talk about commit something, we think about commit sin. So that's why that word is not really encouraged in you know, when we write about when we write documentation, or when we talk, you know, in professional environment. So that's not something that encourage. CDC also discourage complete suicide and successful suicide. We don't want to use that, because that may bring different view when we use those terms, you know. On the other hand, the term death by suicide or die by suicide is encouraged and is, you know, used on clinical environment. When you write documentation, those are words that you want to use. So suicide attempts is when that person try to kill themselves by one potential injurious behavior. That behavior may or may not cause them injuries. I used to work with, you know, you can understand it as a unsuccessful suicide, even though, you know, I know that not encouraged word, but that person tried to kill themselves, but they didn't die by that behavior. And self-harm behavior is that behavior that try to hurt themselves, but they don't have suicidal intention on that behavior. I used to work with a lot of kids. When you see their wrist right here, a lot of cut, they just cut to have the feeling to release the burden the burdens on themselves. They don't cut to kill themselves. So those are different things, because when we work with patients with suicidal ideation, a lot of time we have to hospitalize them. However, though, with patients with self-harm behavior, sometimes they don't need that level of care. So assess for those behavior, what the intention behind that behavior really important, because that helps us know what appropriate level. Yes, self-harm is more than cutting. Also, so I'm just saying cutting as an example. There are some other behavior of self-harm, like banging their head to the wall. They try to, you know, use a lot of tool that they try to cut themselves with their nails too. There are lots of different types of self-harm. So it can be physically, or it can also be emotionally. So just watch for I'm just emphasize that we need to know the intention behind that behavior. Is it self-harm or is it suicide? Is it suicide? Yes, there we go. So why we have to do it? Firstly, as a standard of care, Dr. Krishna and Dr. Leon, you may jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, because I work in mental health. So it's just standard of care for whenever I see any patient, that's the standard of care. I have to do it anyway, regardless that person has a warning sign or has do something that make me believe that, but that's the standard of care, so I have to do it anyway. And it's a liability issue, because sometimes when you work in mental health, you also have to deal with legal issue, with legal systems. Sometimes you have to go to court, so that's why documentation is important. So, and when you work with patients with suicidal ideation and you don't screen for suicide assessment, that's on you. So you have to do it anyway. I don't know how about other specialty, Dr. Krishna and Dr. Leon, you want to share about this?
Yes, so I think that in family medicine as primary care, we see a lot of patients that may have depression, may have anxiety, and they express to us their sadness and their hopelessness. And so we always have to ask the questions if you have thoughts of hurting yourself or others. And that is something that I always ask every patient who comes to see me who has depression. Because if, like Ms. Vaughn mentioned, it's the standard of care, and also is an important thing for us as clinicians, as doctors, to know, because that can change the way that we treat the patient. It can show us the severity of patients' symptoms. And also, it's part of the PHQ-9, that question of, patient have thoughts of hurting themselves. So for every patient who has depression, we normally do a PHQ-9 every time they come to follow up with us. Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Krishna. So as I mentioned, that is standard of care. So, and also that really show the patient that we truly care about their well-being. We truly care about them, not only physically, but also emotionally. We care about them as a human who has all that, our emotion, all the psychological and physical problem. And even up to a actual process of killing themselves, the majority of them are still ambivalent about their decision. So which means that there is a study they interview they interview someone who attempted suicide in the past, and those individuals share that even up to the process of killing themselves, they still don't know that is that the right decision to make? Do they really want to die? Because sometimes when people decided to kill themselves, they are in crisis, and when you are in crisis, you don't make you don't in right state of mind to make an informed decision. So that's I want to put it in here so that we as a clinician know that it's really important, because sometimes we know that person, they keep talking about killing themselves, they keep trying to kill themselves, but we just try to prevent them from having any behavior or making a mistake that they cannot fix anymore. They cannot do it in the future, because what's worse than not live anymore, right? You don't know what the future holds. So just my philosophy is always over caring than regret later, or under caring. So just do it, even though you don't think that patient has just their behavior just like attention seeking behavior, or their behavior just to they just an impulsive behavior. So just do it anyway. Take it seriously. Ask them to rule out the possibility of suicide, so that we, as a clinician, we don't have anything to regret later, because we do everything that we could. And sometimes people avoid talking about suicide because they think that asking about suicide or asking about the possibility of suicide may create a suicidal ideation. And no, it's not the case. Sometimes, you know, I work with children, adolescents, and some patients refuse to send their kid back to the hospital for check-up and back to outpatient therapy, because they think that we as a clinician, we keep talking, keep discussing about suicide with their kid. They may put the idea in their head so that they're gonna kill themselves in the future. No, it's not right. You cannot tell somebody that, okay, go ahead and kill yourself. No, that's not true. In fact, talking about this topic, sharing, create a safe environment for them to talk about this, is have them to process their thoughts. You know, in some culture, especially in Vietnamese culture, we don't really sit down and talk about, you know, oh mom, I want to kill myself. That's not really common. I know that happen, but it's not really common. So creating that safe environment, have our teenagers, have our patient can express their thoughts and have them process what they are thinking, what they can do to help themselves, because, you know, that's not something they can often talk at home. So maybe when they come to the hospital, when they come to see the therapist, that's, you know, have them understand it better. And whenever I share with other clinicians about this topic, I always put it in here. Most people kill themselves because they decided to kill themselves. It's not on us. It's not on you as a clinician. It's not, because, you know, regardless, whatever we do, that's their decision. At the end of the day, that is decision. We can provide them the best care that we can. We can hospitalize them. Let me share with you a story. I used to work in a inpatient psychiatrist unit, and we have one-on-one program, which means that patient in the highest level of care, that's crisis. There's someone always with that patient 24/7. Even when they go to the bathroom, someone gonna stand in the front door to make sure that they're okay. So that's the highest level of care. She was a nurse, have her life perfect altogether, married to a successful man, have a really beautiful little daughter. She has everything put together, and she is the first graduate, you know, the first college graduate person in her family. So that's make her parents really proud of her. She has her life all together. She's young, healthy, beautiful. One day, her husband, she found that her husband seeing somebody else, and she went home, bring it up to her husband, and she even say that, you know, she doesn't want to break her family. She doesn't want a divorce. She doesn't want to destroy the perfect pictures that she's having. So she bring it up to her husband that, okay, if you decided to leave that woman and stay with me, go back to family, we still can do it. Yeah, we're gonna go through it together. We can do it. I'm gonna forgive you. You know what her husband said? No, sorry, I don't love you anymore. I have to leave. And they divorced. And, you know, she has depressions, you know, all that happened as one. So she lost her job as a nurse too. So she attempted suicide multiple times. She didn't even take care for her baby daughter, because, you know, when you're not in right state of mind, not, you know, you can't take care of anybody else. So we decided to hospitalize her, and she was on one-on-one. And at that night, when she slept, she turned her back to the specialist who took care of her that day. She has a little bit nail on her finger. she cut her wrist with that, turning her back to the specialist, and she killed herself in front of without nobody know, because at night and everybody think that she's sleeping. She was sleeping, so she actually turned her face to the wall and do it, and cut her wrist with her nail. So I want to put that story in there, saying that yes, our patient experience a lot and we there to have them, but at the end of the day, it's still their decision. And please, as a clinician, don't blame it on yourself. If you provide them best care that you can, that's good. That's good enough, I think, because you cannot keep someone from doing something that they decided to, no matter what you do. You hospitalize someone for 2 weeks, you have to release them, you have to discharge them. You cannot keep them with you all your life. And after that, you provide them outpatient visit, you provide them therapy, but if they decided to kill themselves, it's not on you. I know that it's hard and it may sound selfish, but yes, that's true. Because you can't just do that much, it's still their decision. Just want to emphasize that, so that, don't blame yourself. If something happened, of course, I don't want this to happen, but in case it does happen, there's sometimes it may happen. And as long as you do your job, that's not on you anymore. So how to do it? This is a formula that we often use when we assess suicide. So we have to suicide risks equal statistics and aggravating facts divided for protective factor. So statistics factor is the baseline risk. It can be history of self-harm, any history in the past, any family history. So the family history, we want to know any family of suicide, history of family history of suicide, family history of substance abuse, family history of mental illness, especially, though assess 1 and 2 in the DSM-5, the mood disorder, the depression, anxiety, those are factors that we want to know. We want to know about their medical diagnosis, any, especially when they have cancer, when they have HIV, when they have heart disease, or are patient with chronic pain. Those are things that really important that we need to know. And any traumatic brain injuries, those are very important things that we need to keep in mind. Demographic risks also are things here. Male more at risk than women. In fact, women attempt suicide more than men, but men die by suicide more than women. So men, they have more lethal plan to kill themselves, because when they decided to kill themselves, they really do it. So that's why they are more at risk than women. And the older you get, the higher risk you have. White men from the age of 65 and above are the most at risk group. Impulsivity is also another thing that we need to consider. Like some people, they always take risks, they always do risky behavior. I saw some questions about ADHD and suicide in our question box. Yes, ADHD increasing risk for suicide because of this part. We know that ADHD is attention deficit and hyperactivity. Some people, they have problem with hyperactivity, with impulsivity. So that's the nature of the disorder. So when people with ADHD, sometimes, especially impulsivity problem, they take risks, they do risky behavior, they do it just because of that's the disorder that they having. So that's put them at risk for suicide. Come back to the story that I shared. So that's increasing the risks. Yes, it does. And ADHD themselves is not, it's just a risk, just an add-on risk for suicide. However, another factor that we need to consider, because I love working with ADHD. That's my clinical interest, so I can talk all day about this. ADHD, you know, people with ADHD, when they grow up as an adult, there are a lot of factors. There are problems with them. They have social problem. They have social problem. They have, you know, academic problem. They have job problem because they can't focus. They cannot maintain and they cannot maintain their friendship. They cannot maintain their focus. That influence their quality of life. So that's another factor that increasing the risk for suicide. Let me make it clear, ADHD doesn't cause suicide. It's just increasing the risk for suicide. Okay, we clear on that? And low distress tolerance. Some people, they like, you know, in medical, in physical field, you know, medical field, sometimes people who have higher pain tolerance. Some people, they have low pain tolerance. That's the same concept in psychological field. Some people, they have high distress tolerance, and people who have low distress tolerance is higher risk for suicide. And their access to weapon. If someone tell you that they're gonna go home and kill themselves with a gun, do they have a gun at home? Do they know how to use gun? Firstly, so those are factors that you need to consider. Some people decided to tell you that they're gonna overdose on Tylenol. So do they have time? Can the kid have Tylenol at home? And sometimes kids gonna stab themselves with a knife. They think that they're gonna do that. So can they access to knife at home? Because, you know, some parents, they're really mindful, they're really careful when it's come to knife. They even have a locker they put knife on, especially when the kid have mental health problem. So do they have access to those things? Those are important factors that we need to consider.
I want to ask a quick thing. So like, so because we're not really sure like if they have weapons at home. So like, even if they mention like, I see this happen a lot in the emergency room, where like people just say, "Oh, I want to kill myself," but I'm not sure what weapon I'm gonna use, because anything can be used at home. So like, we still keep those patients in the ED because we afraid. So like, that's just something that really common. So like, how do we know exactly what weapon do they have, or what kind of question can we explore on like what kind of means that they will use to kill themselves?
Thank you, Dr. Leon, for those questions. Yes, when talking about when we're assessing suicide, we do have different level. We have thoughts, plan, intent. So maybe your patient just maybe your patient have thoughts of suicide, but he or she doesn't really think about the plan. Some people, they do have think about the plan. They think about plan A, plan B, plan C. So those are things that help us decide what level of care that we think. Some people just said that, oh, I want to kill myself. I don't want to live anymore. But we say, okay, how are you going to kill yourself? Tell me. They don't have that. They don't know what to do yet. So I don't say that those people not at risk, but we less worry than people who have plan A, plan B, plan C. And okay, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna get dressed, change myself get changed to the nicest outfit that I can have, and I'm gonna overdose on Tylenol. I have 10 bottles of Tylenol at home. So those plans are tell you how where they are as our level of care, so that we can provide their put them in, whether or not hospitalize them or just refer them to behavioral health. It depends on that too. I'm gonna talk about it later too. Yeah, Joe, you have some question?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you turn back for the current slide? As I want to ask about the low distress tolerance. Is that the inborn, and do it have any connection with the high sensitive person? Because I want to, and if I want to know more about this factor, so where I can have the information, because I am a high sensitive person, and I think I don't have yes, I don't know if it have any link with the low distress tolerance.
Thank you, Joe, for your question. So like I mentioned before, so you can imagine the distress tolerance as a pain tolerance in the medical field. Some people, they born with higher pain tolerance. So you know, even with they broke their bone, their bone and need to cast the head off the arm. That's still not too much pain for them. But some people, they just cut themselves, they already feel that, oh, it's hurtful, I can't stand it, I need some painkiller. So those are just something that you can think of when talking about low distress tolerance. That's just the same thing. Whether or not that, you know, different people has different distress tolerance. I can handle it, but not everyone can handle it. It's too much for me, but it's nothing for you. That's normal. That's okay. It's just individual to individual, and you wanna know it and you wanna know it when you have interview with your patient. And this is where motivational interview come in handy. You wanna explore that. And the question you asked about sensitive person, I'm not sure that I can answer that, because like I mentioned, it's really depends on individual. Different people are gonna have this. You can be a sensitive person, but you still can have high distress tolerance. Or you can be a not sensitive but have low distress tolerance. That can happen, you know. Hopefully it answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you. And I have another question about all these static. What is the most important contribute factor, or it has the same? What is the most static that affect the patient? Yeah.
I just put it in here so that we have some idea about what we're gonna need to cover. Because, you know, some patients, they don't have medical diagnosis. So those are just, you know, a list of factors that you wanna assess, you wanna know. Because some patients, they have this problem, but some also have another problem. So it's really different. Not any factor that more than the other factor. Right? Anybody else has any questions about the baseline factor? All right, let's move on. So, all right, so elevated factor, elevated risks. You know, baseline factor is what patient come, what their life is, what they come to see us. That's the baseline. Elevated risk is the one that adds on their stress, on their baseline stress level, on whatever they already have. So those factors can be life stressor, maybe the loss of loved ones, some conflict in family, some relationship concern, some academic problem, some social problems, some financial or some legal problems. So those are add-on risks that increasing the suicidal risks. You know, current symptom. This can be, you know, like I mentioned, suicide plan intent, or severe anxiety, or some people, they have panic attack, they have depression, any Yes, side life stress are huge. Hopelessness and feeling of burdensome. A lot of time, people with suicidal ideation, they feel hopeless and they feel burdened. They are burdened of someone else. So by killing themselves, yes, family issues too, and by killing themselves, they can release that burden for their family. So those are elevated risks that we need to assess when we talk with them. Yes, absolutely. Family issues, and in our society, we put too much stress on everyone. Just social media. Compare yourself to other people in social media. Everybody has nice pictures and everything on their life put together on social media, but we hear our life messed up. I depressed and I don't know what to do with my life. Those are another source of stress, especially for young kids, for teenagers. And cyberbullying, I saw a lot of that when I work with teenagers. So those are factors that low self-esteem. Yes, those are factors that, again, that elevated risk for them. So sometimes everybody talk have tons of effects, definitely. And people don't want, thank you, Dr. Leon, for bringing it up. Most people don't want to talk about it because they fear a judgment from the society. That's why as a clinician, we need to stay in a neutral role. We're not there to judge them. We're gonna accept them. We accept them as they are. We meet them at their level. So let's move on. It's scary to talk about it. People think of you as crazy, the dangerous one. Yes, thank you for sharing that. And yes, and those are things that we cannot control. But what we can do as a clinician, create a safe environment so that our patient, our client has someone or some place that they can come and share. And let's move on the protective factor. So protective factors are the factors that keep them alive. So those can be social support, support, but this support need to be available and accessible. Some people, they don't have any friends. Some people, they may have some online friends who they never met and rarely talk. So those are, they still sort of support, but it's not available and it's not accessible. So when you are in crisis, you want to seek for a support system that's right there for you. You don't want to talk to somebody and who's not there and cannot answer your need right away. So you want to identify that kind of social support that available and accessible. You want to know about their coping skill and their problem solving skill. How they handle their crisis before. What did they do? Do they handle it well? Did they handle it well? Do they have any problems handling when they in crisis? And religious belief. For some religions, suicide considered as sinful. I work in a really conservative state, and I work with really religious patients, and that's one of the most important factors that keep them alive, because they don't want to commit to a sin. So that can be a protective factor for them too. So identify those things as them. Like satisfaction, strong reality testing. Some people, they come, you're gonna see some patient with hallucination and delusion. So they don't have really great reality. They don't have really great sense of reality. So you want to see if they're hearing and see things that we don't. So sometimes the voice that they're hearing telling them to kill themselves. So that we need to hospitalize right away, because they don't know, they don't know what's going on in the reality. So they have different reality. pregnancies is important too. Some mom, they, even though they have severe depression, they want to kill themselves, but because they're pregnant, they keep them alive. Good therapeutic relationship and treatment compliant. Those are protective factors that we need to consider. We need to talk with our patients so that we help them identify their safety plan. So how to do it? This is where motivational interview come in handy. A lot of time, when you work in medical field and you assess for suicide assessments, especially when you work in the ED, that patient is not someone you have a relationship with. Maybe that you just met that person for the first time. So some of us may think that asking questions about killing themselves can make that person feel offensive. Normally they don't, but if they do, that's okay. We can use hierarchical questions. This is, I think last month we talked about you guys have a training on didactic training on a motivational interview, so you can use it here. Ask that person, okay, so you mentioned that you have been feeling depressed. So, and normally, it's not usual for people who depressed think about killing themselves. So how have that been for you? You mentioned that you feel hopeless. How's that been for you? Have you experienced that? And if they said yes, you can go. People with, when they feel hopeless, it's not really uncommon if they think about suicide or think about hurting themselves. So how has it been for you? Tell me, would you mind share with me your experience? So those hierarchical questions gonna help you. You're gonna lead the conversation, lead that person to the answer to the questions that you want to ask. And by normalizing that person gonna, oh, that's okay for me if I have that thoughts, because most people have it. So it's okay for me to have it, and they're gonna more willing to share. So use hierarchical question and try and maybe normalize it a little bit so that people are more open to share. Engaging and active listening, like I mentioned, wherever you are, be there for them totally. Watch for discrepancies in their statement on their behavior. Do not afraid to point them out. This is very important. When I was writing my note or when I work with my patient, there's a part that I really like, the observation. Our patient presentation. So, sometimes people may say that, oh, I don't want to kill myself. I'm okay. I'm good. I want to go home because they don't want us to hospitalize them, because the hospital is not fun. They don't want us to hospitalize them, but they say it so that you can let them go home. However, their behavior tell you the otherwise. Point it out. Do not afraid. Okay, you mentioned that you don't wanna kill yourself. You okay. You don't wanna kill yourself. However, you giving your thing away. You giving your thing away. You go buy a bunch of Tylenol. So those are things that we wanna know. Those are things that seem off for us. Point it out. Okay, so can you please help me explain that? And listen with your third ear. Listen to your patient. Engage actively. Sometimes their behavior talk more than their word. And be clear, be transparent with your patient. Okay, am I hearing you well? what did I miss? Please tell me. Okay, this is my concern. I'm concerned. I'm worried that you're gonna go home and kill yourself. I don't know why I have that's anxiety. I don't know why I have that concern, but this is my anxiety. This is what I wanna. I just have that feeling. So please help me with this. Please help me with this. Please explain for me. Did I miss something in our conversation? You know, what you bring to the room is what you receive. If you know, as a patient, you know, as a therapist, express for the patient that there's something that I don't know, and that's okay. So I ask you, so that patient can think that, okay, my therapist doesn't know a lot of things. My doctor doesn't know a lot of things. I can educate them. So that's actually makes them feel better, make them feel as a human, you know. We don't know everything. So be transparent. I don't know, and this is my concern. I'm asking for you these questions because this is what I worry about. So ask them. Let them know that we don't know, and we need their help to understand them better, so that we can provide the best care. Eye contact is important. You know, make eye contact with them, make them feel that they've been seen, heard, and heard. However, cultural play a role here. Some cultures, they avoid eye contact. It's, you know, most of you here are Vietnamese, so you know that we don't want to look directly with a, you know, authority figure in the eye, and so, you know, so put that into consideration. Some patients, they avoid it just because of that, their culture, and that's not because they're telling lie, or it's not because of they just try to hide something. So, you know, culture play important role too. Terminology, pick one or two and stick with them. We don't want to hold a 10 million terminology to our patient. I'm not saying that they cannot understand. I'm saying they are in not their best state of mind. They're in crisis. We don't want through a 10 million terminology. Just pick one or two and stick with them. Use them the whole time. And make it collaboration. You know, when in our behavioral health, in our, you know, mental health field, for the intervention, we often use the term we instead of you, so that patient feel that, okay, I'm here with them. We do it together instead of they doing it by themselves. No matter what happened, I'm here to do it with you. You know, that's the sense of belonging, the sense of having someone to rely on is really important, because they are already hopelessness and helplessness. So do you have any questions before I move forward? All right, so right for now, so Dr. Leon, you mentioned about your patient just have some idea about killing themselves. So where I can answer your question here too. So assessing suicide, we have intent, plan, thoughts. So intent is plan A, plan B, plan C. And some people, they just share with you one plan at a time. So ask them throughout the interview. Your motivational interview skill, which is really important. And you have to determine if they think about suicide. Think about suicide is different. Desire to die by suicide, another story. 10% of us think about suicide, but not all that 10% decided to kill themselves. So those are two different stories. You know, what they say is subjective, but what objective, what you can observe, like I mentioned, behavior preparation. Do they writing a letter, goodbye letter, not attending to your usual meeting, saying goodbye to everyone else. Though even no matter what they say, their behavior tell more. So those are two things that you need to keep in mind when you talk about intent. I'm aware of the time, so I'm gonna go fast. But if you wanna slow me down, if you have any question, stop me, okay? So motivation and meaning thoughts of behavior, why they kill themselves now, why it's not the best, why not last month, why it's now, and does anything in the past affect their present? Ask them what lead to that behavior, why they kill themselves, because people don't just wake up and decided to kill themselves. It's a accumulation of every little thing every day, right? So we want to ask them about that. We're gonna ask them what is the most important risk factor. So we have to specify and assess him, assess the mean of suicide, ideation, intent, plan. For the plan, we want to know as specific as possible. We want to know about where, when, and how. Are they going to do it tonight? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it tomorrow? Where are they going to do it? They're going to do it at home. They're going to do it in the park. And how they're going to do it? What weapon, what method, what mean they're going to use? Overdose? Are they gonna use gun? Are they gonna use knife? Or are they gonna hang themselves? Those are things that you want to access carefully. Like I mentioned before, the patient have enough knowledge to do that plan. Like if they want to use a gun, they need to know how to use the gun first. Sometimes, I used to work with 6-year-old, 5 years or 5-year-old who hospitalized because of suicidal ideation. And I'm not gonna expect those kids to kill themselves with a gun because, most of them don't know how to use it. So even, if their plans is using gun to kill themselves, are gonna less concerned than if their plans to hang themselves or to jump on the street and get hit by the car. Those are two different, you have to keep it in mind. If you have one patient who has suicidal ideation, that's okay. But if you have 10 patients with suicidal ideation, where plans come in very handy, because you need to assess who need what first and who in crisis more than the other, and how lethal that plan. If your patient said that I'm gonna overdose, I'm gonna use 5 Tylenol, 5 pills of Tylenol to kill myself, that's not gonna happen. It's not really lethal. It's not, you can assess that lethal of their plan. If they said that I'm gonna just jump right in the drain and get hit to kill myself, that's lethal because kill them right away. So any attempt to prevent rescue, which means that, okay, if they know that they may have that and that thoughts may occur again, so what they explain to do it to rescue themselves. Have patients practice this plan. Some patients, they practice their plan. They practice, okay, they take their knife out, they practice the plan so that they can do it smoothly. Some even done the dry run. So they get ready. I used to have someone who, decided what outfit they're gonna wear. They put makeup on, they drew the shoes, they even go to the funeral house. So those are things that you need to take seriously because your patient has strong intent to die. And plan A, plan B, plan C. Sometimes plan A didn't work out. They have plan B, plan C, and ask them. You're gonna explore more than what you can imagine. And some, for some patients, when they have suicidal ideation, they often has a history of suicidal ideation in the past. So that's not the first time they're talking about this. So what is stopping them from doing it? You can ask, like, what's stopping you from carrying this out? What keep you alive? Those are protective factors. And you also want to assess for severe medical. You want to assess for any severe medical illness. Sometimes people would first when they got a medical diagnosis that severe and that they're not much hope for them, they may decide to kill themselves. So you want to assess for that. And personality disorder and trait. Some personality disorder is more higher risk than the other. Reality testing, I mentioned about that before. And impulsivity. I know that because I work with patients for a long period of time, I know that they are really impulsive. However, if you meet that person for the not many time in the past, you don't really know, and they may try to tell you that, oh, I'm usually very playful. However, their behavior tell you otherwise. They may have risky hypersexuality behavior. They may have they may act on their emotion when they get mad. They're gonna throw things. They're gonna punch the wall. They're gonna yelling. So those are things that you're gonna observe and consider, even though your patient tell you the otherwise. Is there any evidence that your patient or your client can delay gratification? That's important, because people with impulsivity problem, they cannot delay their gratification. If they want something, they want to do it right away. People with impulsivity problem, they can do things like, I want to kill myself. I'm gonna do it next week. No, it's not. No, it's not. People with impulsivity, they want to kill themselves, they do it right away. They want to, if they want to do anything, not even kill themselves, they want to do anything, they do it right away. So do they have that ability to delay their gratification is really important too. Okay, so patient presentation that we mentioned, report, your relationship important, orientation, do they know about the day, the time, the location that they are at, their mood and their affect, their thoughts, memory, their judgment, are they able to make informed decision? Do they hearing things that other people don't? And any significant or any important behavior observation that you can observe. Documentation. Those, I'm not gonna insult your intelligence by reading off the slide, but those on the screen there are other factors that you need to include in the documentation. I share about my experience working here in the US, so it's maybe a little bit different with Vietnam. So in the US, sometimes when patient come, sometimes as a clinician, you need to go to the court as a witness, and at that point, your documentation so the evidence. Okay, my patient, I work on this and that with my patient, and this is what I plan to do, and what he or she shared with me on that session. Those are really important factors, because one of the things that my supervisor always tell me, that cover your ass, because your documentation gonna help you, gonna help you when it's come to legal problem, if something happened to your patient. Those are very important thing. And on the screen, I put everything that we need to put in the documentation, in the progress note for our patient. So here are some resources that you can have, some for pediatric symptom checklist for young kids, and Columbia Suicidal Severity Rating Scale, and Dr. Krishna mentioned earlier, PSQ-9. Those are the tool that I often use to work with my patients. So you can just Google it, and I put a link here too. So hopefully you can find something helpful here. There we go, Q&A. Any questions? Any concern? Or not even questions? Just say anything that you want to share about.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So when we document this, sometimes patients say this may be confidential. So like, to what extent do we document to also protect ourselves, but also protect our patient confidentiality? Because they may not want to share this with anyone else besides us.
Yes, that's true. It's confidentiality. However, there's a there are limitations of confidentiality. There are 3 situations that we need to release information. When patient has suicidal, when there's a patient want to kill themselves, when patient want to kill somebody else, and when patient in risk of abuse or neglect, we need to report all of that. And we only release information when we have court order. So you don't have to worry about confidentiality when it comes to suicide, because that's our duty to report. So we should be fine with that.
Thank you so much for your very informative and helpful presentation today, Hương. And I think that our audience is very interested in this topic as well, as you can see with the participation today. And I think that this will help save lives in the future. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity for me to share about this topic. That's a great interest of mine. And I'm gonna leave my contact information below. So if you guys have any questions or anything that you think that I can help you with, or just just question about not even suicide, about ADHD, about anything else that you think may be beneficial for you, please feel free to contact me, and I'm gonna help you as much as I can. Yes, yeah. And thank you for creating these opportunities, and thank you everyone for listening to me, for the over an hour. I'm sorry for keeping you guys late. I'm sorry for talking too much.
No, I think that we have to thank you for your time and your enthusiasm in sharing this topic. I think that I have had a lot of good experience, and this topic definitely remind me of different things that I need to even pay more attention to with my patients. So. Mm-hmm.
So I leave my email on the chat box. So if you guys have any questions about this topic, but further questions about anything in of course in my specialty, please feel free to email me. And yes, and definitely thank you everyone.
Oh, I see. There's a question about any quick assessment tool.
I do put some resources, some tool that you can use for your patient. I do put something for kid, for adolescent, and for adult in the slide. I believe that we're gonna share the slide later, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can send out email in the post webinar email, and that will include the link to the presentation as well. Mm-hmm. So please make sure to fill out the feedback form for us. That would help us to be able to send you the presentation and also the certificate of completion for today's webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And I'll pass the mic back to our MC here.
So this concludes the conference Suicide Assessment in Monthly Medical Didactic Series. On behalf of Phoenix, thank you all for attending. We hope you have learned and enjoyed this event. Phoenix really wants to hear honest feedback from you, so please take a few minutes to fill out the feedback form provided in the podcast. Mọi người ơi, vậy là chúng ta đã cùng nhau đi qua các nội dung của buổi hội thảo y khoa bằng tiếng Anh Suicide Assessment đánh giá nguy cơ tự sát ngày hôm nay rồi. Thì mong rằng buổi hội thảo đã mang lại thật nhiều giá trị cho các bạn. Thay mặt Phoenix, mình xin cảm ơn tất cả mọi người đã dành thời gian tham gia buổi hội thảo ngày hôm nay. Học viện Phượng Hoàng rất mong được lắng nghe những phản hồi chân thành từ các bạn. Vì vậy, hy vọng các bạn có thể dành thời gian để hoàn thành form khảo sát ngắn được đính kèm trong podcast để có cơ hội được nhận giấy chứng nhận từ học viện nhé. Và bây giờ, mời mọi người cùng nhau hãy mở webcam lên để chúng ta có thể chụp ảnh lưu niệm cùng Phoenix ạ. Before we say goodbye, I want to invite Dr. Leon, Dr. Christina Nguyễn, and Master Hương Võ to take a photo with all of us. So on the audience, please turn on your webcam for souvenir photographs. Rồi, bây giờ chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau chụp những cái bức hình lưu niệm cùng với diễn giả của chúng ta nha. Mọi người hãy cùng nhau cười thật tươi lên nào. 1, 2, 3. Yes, nice. Một tấm hình nữa nha mọi người ơi. Chúng ta hãy cùng nhau thả những cái trái tim xinh xắn cho diễn giả của chúng ta ngày hôm nay nào. Cảm ơn mọi người thật nhiều. Thì ở đây Phoenix đã có được những cái tấm hình xinh đẹp rồi. Thì hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở những cái chương trình và sự kiện tiếp theo của Phoenix nhé. See you later.
Xin cảm ơn tất cả mọi người đã tham gia ngày hôm nay. Xin thay mặt Phoenix thì mình cũng mong rằng những sự kiện này sẽ ngày càng hữu ích cho các bạn và sẽ có thêm nhiều sự kiện hay nữa trong tương lai. Các bạn hãy subscribe và hãy đăng ký vào email list của Phoenix để nhận được những thông tin về những sự kiện tiếp theo. Xin chào các bạn.